Hi, it's Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and we're back with another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. I'm very excited to have with us today Dr. Trupti Gokani. And you're like, when I talk about body, mind, spirit, she is probably the poster child of what to do about this. So thank you so much, Dr. Gokani, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to our conversation.
So you did your background was in neurology, but how did you end up into this more like holistic, integrative aspect of medicine?
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes in life, life takes us on a journey, and from the journey we evolve in our own being. And for me, started a traditional medical school training, very Western minded. Didn't grow up with any holistic medicine. My dad's a doctor, and only saw the Western perspective on things. And then I started struggling with insomnia when I was a first year medical student, and it was my like big aha to the entry and the world of medicine because I really had never seen a doctor before for myself, except for routine visits. And so here I was challenged with this, sleep issue I had. And lo and behold, it took me down this whole path because medications didn't quite work for me at that time. I started going into the Eastern medicine and holistic approaches and found the answers for me in Ayurvedic medicine. But I was a first year medical student. So I kind of did the Western training, but knew there was something else out there. So that's what started my journey.
And I find that there's so many people that end up in this situation. It's like they have something that's going on themselves, and the process of trying to find the answers, they end up discovering all this other things outside of what we know as traditional medicine, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, can you explain what Ayurveda is for us?
Sure. So Ayurveda is the wisdom of living, the wisdom of healing. It's an ancient medical practice. It's believed to be the first system of healing known to mankind, 5,000 years in origin. And the basis of Ayurveda is this concept that all of us are made up of elements. And the five elements are air, space, fire, earth, and water. And at birth, we have a certain elemental makeup. Some of us are a little bit more fire types, some are more air and space element, the wind types, and some are more earth types. And based on our life, we can unfortunately get ourselves pushed out of alignment with our birth nature, and thus symptoms then occur and then imbalances occur.
And then, with finding that for yourself, how have you incorporated it into your practice of neurology?
Yeah, so as I, discovered this whole insomnia pattern for me was linked to too much wind, excess movement, energy. I realized everything I was doing at that time in my young life, my early 20s, was wrong. I was, moving too much. I remember I was doing kickboxing as my form of exercise. I was constantly going. I didn't ever sit for a meal, always grabbing things. I was eating cold and dry foods. I was getting to bed late. So what I realized is that what I knew about health was quite westernized, and the Eastern philosophy about health is get into the connection with yourself and know who you are before you start changing your life. And thus, once I learned that I was wind, I started doing the wind relieving things such as sitting more, meditating, yoga, eating warmer foods, quieting my mind down, and it was interesting how as I did that, my sleep came back again. And without using pharmaceuticals, I'm 50 years old now, and I was 23 then. I sleep well, don't take any medications. And I recovered from that. And then I've used that perspective with people in pain because I worked initially in the migraine world, and I've done a lot of work with migraine. So in neurology, I started having people start thinking about, why do you have the pain? What does this mean for you? What is your energy state when you have pain? Are you too excitable, too fired up, too earthy? And then once you take a conversation that direction, it isn't pain happening to you, it's happening for you. There's something imbalanced with yourself that you need to fix.
That's really, I love that idea. And, I started thinking about too what you were saying, like in the Western medicine, we're always taught like symptoms, like here, take a
Right.
pill, symptoms, here, do
Right.
this, instead of really trying to get down to like what's causing it, that the symptoms are just probably the body's like, hey, look at me, I need
Exactly.
help, like just trying to get your attention.
Yeah, and the challenge is we don't know what the language is, right? We don't know what the body's trying to tell us. And when you don't know, then you're left with taking something to kind of quiet the symptoms down. And instead, how about taking some inward investigation of oneself to understand what the message is and what the language is of the body? So then we can, eradicate the symptoms.
With Ayurveda, and I could be wrong, are there a lot of herbs that are associated with that practice too?
Yeah, Yeah, it's a very plant-based, botanical, kind of based practice of using herbs, using food, using spices, using different types of teas to quiet the system down. And all of these have different potencies. There are, even with food, there's 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, astringent. So using, for example, different tastes and different spices to balance the system. So if someone that's really hot shouldn't be eating foods that are really hot and spicy. They should be having cooling foods, like adding coriander. So you could use foods medicinally, and then yes, you could use actually some of these herbals and plants in capsule form to get a stronger effect. And what's cool is that we have like this pharmacy out there, right, in Mother Nature, to figure out how to get ourselves balanced. And I think it's upon us to figure out what it is that serves us and balances us. So then we're not having to then always go to the doctor and ask for prescriptions.
When you're talking about all these different, like the wind and the heat, and if someone is suffering from, whatever condition, where do they start with this? Because it sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah. And it is, for as simple as I'm trying to make it, is actually a very complicated, science. And I think the first step is to understand and really to process this concept that it's happening for us. My insomnia was happening for me, not to me, and start to then respect the concept of what is my body trying to tell me. And then when I start, I have, this program, I've set it up as a 3-brain program. So I go into the first brain, which is, what are the thinking patterns around your symptoms? The second brain is the enteric nervous system. First brain is the central nervous system. Second is the enteric nervous system. What's your feeling? What is your emotional body? Are you in harmony with the thinking brain and the emotional brain, or are they in conflict with you? And the third brain is the microbiome, looking into what does the microbiome look like? And in each of those goes into state. The mind could be what ifing, and that's the windy, excitable state. The emotions could be anxious, and again, that's the windy and excitable state. You could have constipation, and that's what happens. The body goes into freeze when it's what ifing a lot. And the constipation is a physiological change. And then the microbiome shifts according to that. So if you can start to break it down and look at it that way, it's not so complicated. I do give people quizzes to figure it out, though once they start to think about it that way, first, second, third brain, it seems to make more sense. And then we can apply the different techniques based on what their goals are.
This is great, because you're making my brain kind of spin, because I deal with a lot of patients with pelvic pain, and I see with them, like, a lot of times it is a shift in the microbiome, and then there's that anxiety, and then they tend to get themselves kind of like worked up and almost like in this circular thought of trying to figure it out, and then that makes the anxiety worse, and then they get like intestinal symptoms. So I'm going, oh my goodness, this is like all
Right.
connecting.
And what's interesting is that there's more conversation from the gut to the brain than there's from the brain to the gut, which I know you're aware of that. And I think for the listeners to know that, like, the brain, the first brain up here, isn't really in charge. That's humbling coming from a neurologist, right? Where we're taught that first brain is really the control center. It's quite humbly not. There's a lot happening at the microbiome. I think the microbiome, the 100 trillion bacteria, probably have more control than we know of our entire physiology. And the enteric nervous system is 100 million neurons that are located within the gut. There's a lot of conversation that's happening down there that is actually communicating upwards to the brain. And thus there's this interplay, like you said. And so if the thinking brain is going one direction and anxious, and the emotional brain is feeling worried, and we're not really controlling that piece of it, only so much, improvement can happen if you're changing your diet or taking supplements or taking a probiotic. There's a lot more work that needs to be done looking at all 3 and making sure each one's in harmony and communicating well with each other,
That brings up, how much do you see diet playing a role in a lot of these, numerous conditions that people have?
Yeah, diet is fundamental to Ayurvedic medicine. And the belief is that, food is medicine, really. And quite frankly, if your food is not feeding you the nutrients and really the ingredients that balance out your energy body, because food has energy to it. Different plants have certain energetics to it. Some plants have more fire element, some have more wind element, some have more earth element. The food, exactly, with this concept of energy, the food converts into the physical nature of who we are. And so that's the fundamental principle, is starting with good quality food, high quality, vibrant food that's coming from Mother Nature, not processed, not microwaved, not, with all these chemicals and additives to it. So start one is that, because that has prana, life force, energy in it, right? And then choosing the food wisely. to balance our state. I have people that come into my practice that, they love spicy. I mentioned pitta, fire. It's called pitta state, fire state. They eat spicy food all the time. And yet they're saying, well, and they eat fermented kimchi and fermented foods. And they're like, but this is good. There's good probiotics in there. I'll say, yeah, but you're really angry and you have reflux and you have migraines. That's energetically the wrong food for you, even though you're told it's healthy food. So I think diet and the conversation around the energy behind food is really important. Yet, if the mind isn't healthy, if I'm going to be pissed off at someone that did something to me 10 years ago and stay with that anger, I can change my diet. Yet if I don't work on my mind, the diet's only going to take me so far. So that's kind of the bigger picture of it.
I love that part of it because, that's one of the things I've always talked to patients. Like, especially when you got body, mind, spirit, is you can do all the things you want to the body, but you don't take care of those other aspects, you're not getting anywhere.
Exactly. And then people get frustrated. So, you've seen the food elimination test where people eliminate so many foods from their diet, one after another, and then come in saying, I'm not any better, or I got better and then I worsened. And the reality is they didn't work on the mind component or the emotional component behind it. And I've just been doing this, almost 2 decades now. So it's to the point where I say, look, if we can go that direction and look at your food intolerances, isn't it helpful to look at what might have fed into those intolerances, what created those? Because I do think there's that emotional, energetic mind component to this too. And if we don't work on that piece, you're only going to get so far with taking out some foods from your diet, and changing your diet, because the mind plays a big role and it'll show up later. That's what I'm going to say, is it shows up in a different way.
I find is very frustrating. If you have any tips, I am so open to them.
Yeah.
I have a hard time getting my patients to really understand the mind aspect of things. Because that's the part I can't do for them. So, sometimes they come in, they're frustrated because you're right, they're not better. We've tried all these things, I'm not better. And I tried to tell them, we got to work on the mind. We got to work on the mind. Is there any tricks that you use to try to get people to understand the importance of working on the mind?
I think for me, it's this, this concept of knowing that, first of all, the mind is a powerful thing. So what I remind individuals of is this idea of the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. Now, I've worked in the pharma world, done a lot of work with pharma companies, and it's fascinating to me to look at a drug and to see the drug itself have a certain effect, let's say 50% improvement in 50% of the patients, yet the placebo giving 40% improvement in half the patients. And then you say, what is that? How is it possible that the sugar pill or the non-pharmaceutical placebo gave that response? So first thing is having a conversation around it and saying, do you believe in that? Do you believe your mind is powerful? And if so, would you like to know how to create a placebo effect for yourself? And what that really is, what we know is it's your mind is entering into a state of being able to heal and understand what path it needs to take to get into in the route of healing. And then if that first conversation goes well, which a lot of individuals look at that and say, I believe in placebo. I know that nocebo, meaning if I don't believe something's going to work, it probably won't work. I can give you the fanciest probiotic, but if you don't believe it's going to work because you failed 3 others, probably won't for you, right?
Yeah.
And same thing can work against you. So that's the first part of the conversation. Second thing is then, okay, so if you buy that, if you believe in that, then the next step is, what is it that challenges you? And what is it that kind of holds you back in terms of anything in your life, any situations, any individuals, any thought patterns? Do you wake up and say, gosh, I wish I could, or I had, or, and if your mind is taking you down a direction that's unhealthy, most likely that reflects that there's baggage. There's either something from your past that's creating, shame or hurt or abandonment that's holding you back from improving now. So I think that's a big piece of the conversation.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to find more after the commercial break.
Christmas is believed to be a magical time when angels roam the earth, bringing messages of hope and good cheer. Do you need a Christmas angel? I Need a Christmas Angel, a Christmas novella from Tolson Publishing. Kelly Benson has spent the last 5 years hiding in Chicago after her crush Gabe brought a pregnant wife home. Gabe is raising his 4-year-old daughter alone after his wife of 5 years moved to Tampa with her boyfriend. Depressed and hopeless after being fired a week before Christmas, Kelly wishes for a Christmas angel to come work its magic. Can the magic of Christmas drive the loneliness away? Will a Christmas angel bring a love Kelly's way? I Need a Christmas Angel by Raquel Tolson. Order your copy today. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and TolsonBooks.com.
And we're back with Dr. Trupti Gokani. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about these three brains and the first brain. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. After training in neurology is focused on that first brain, the brain that's within the head. And honestly, it's very reductionistic. When I came out of training, I want to just fix this brain up here. I thought that was it, that you just focus on the brain, give the strong medications, do injections, do things over here, because I was working with migraine to quiet down that first brain. And once we did that, everything would be good. And even as I learned Ayurveda, my thinking was still using herbals, using things to quiet this first brain up here. And then I started realizing, well, there's more to it than just the structural part of the first brain, that quieting down the inflammatory pathways or fixing the serotonin levels up here. There's actually the emotional component. There's the thinking component of the first brain. So, and this is, I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of Bruce Lipton and all these wonderful thinkers that have allowed us to realize, Candace Pert, this idea that the molecules of emotion and the ideas that are thinking patterns, if I'm holding on to a thought pattern, and a thought pattern may be that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. And that thought pattern often was inherited at a very young age, between 0 to 7. All of us go into this theta delta brainwave pattern after we're born, and we're around individuals, and it could be our parents, our siblings, the community, our religion, maybe what's on TV. We're hearing things that create a program for us. And, I tell this to some of the young moms that I take care of. If you're, with a young child watching news that's always saying the world is a dangerous place, that little toddler is going to hear and absorb the world is a dangerous place. And that is the thinking pattern this young one has when they enter their adolescence and later years. And that preps the nervous system. It actually turns on the reptilian brain and it prepares it for danger, even when danger isn't there. And this would be the individual that in their 30s, the weather shifts, but the brain perceives weather shift as danger and triggers a migraine or triggers digestive symptoms. Hormone shift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the brain is misperceiving the world as danger. When it's shifting, it believes there's danger coming. So it's almost like a tsunami and the birds fly, this idea that there's something happening, I'm going to have to get out of danger. So it's fascinating to me that first brain thinking pattern, number one, it's picked up, the program is picked up when we're young, and then it's carried into our subconscious program when we're older. And then we wonder why we struggle with repetitive pain syndromes like pelvic pain, you mentioned, migraine pain, digestive symptoms, anxiety, sleep issues, challenges in life with our career, with our friendship, our relationships, our family. Why do I keep bringing on the wrong person in my life? Why can't I find a relationship that's harmonious? Well, maybe I have this early programming that allows me to believe that there's danger and that this person, the way they come into my life, I'm viewing them as dangerous because of some of the ways they act, things that they've said to me. I might be hypercritical of their language patterns and their beliefs and the way they operate. And I then push them away from me and then find another person that does the same thing. And it's not them, it's me looking at them in a way that's overly critical because of my early programming. So what I realized is that as I was doing all this Ayurvedic work and, changing the diet and doing food intolerance testing and adding herbals, some people got a lot better, faster, and some didn't go so far. I was like, that doesn't make sense because they have this vata imbalance. I'll give them, the Triphala or the herbals that I use in my practice. And they got better to a certain degree, but then how come these other ones succeeded so well in my clinical practice? And I was like, wait a second, there's something about their personality. There's something about what they're holding on to. And that's why I mentioned baggage earlier. They're holding on to something that was inherited when they were younger. So the first brain is far more complicated than I said earlier, just kind of quieting it down from a structural standpoint. It really involves looking at the thinking patterns and what program have you inherited that's not serving you? What is the thought process you have that's only allowing repetitive patterns to occur in your life that are leading you down a path that isn't harmonious? So that's why I think people aren't successful with clearing their pain bodies, or they're not successful in their careers or relationships, is because they're carrying that. So what I've trained in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, it's looking at the program. It's looking at what is the program we've inherited and how do you break that, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
That is absolutely, I'm just absolutely fascinated. I could let you go on for
Right?
hours. So
Yeah.
it seems like it's like the answer to everything almost. So
It's the core, and it's something that, it's deep work, isn't something we talk about in 10 minutes in the clinical practice. It's deep, deep dive work. Yet once I get an inkling of it, I can see people now see their patterns showing up again and again. And it's painful to watch, going through one job after another, one relationship after another, going through one migraine cycle after another, asking for steroids. It's like, do you not see you're putting yourself in a situation where you're allowing yourself to go through this because you don't see what you're bringing in. You're bringing in the boss that abuses you because you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of because of your early programming. And it is a big thing to identify, even a bigger thing to really get to the root of. That takes time.
but this is something that people can stop or reverse.
100%. Yeah.
Amazing.
And as long as you're willing to go there, I think, and look and understand that you got to remove your ego out of this. And it's not about anyone saying you're doing this on purpose. It's actually coming from a subconscious program. And once you have some compassion for yourself that my program is generating this response, then it's really saying, okay, let me be open to it. What am I doing? How am I doing that? And then honestly and really diligently looking at your life to say, wow, I myself had brought in different people into my life over and over and over. And I'm like, why do I keep having that same story end this way? And I was like, wow, when I did NLP work and I hired a coach for myself, it's like, goodness gracious, not so obvious to me. I was doing that. And it was a lot of my early programming that I got from my mom. I love her dearly because she inherited something from her mom that I picked up on. And then I turned into quite a pleaser and perfectionistic personality. And I didn't know why I was doing that. But once I saw it, I was like, oh goodness, stop doing that and start creating some boundaries in life. And once I did that, and I did it with authenticity, I did it because I felt ready to do that. Everything shifted dramatically, and it's very empowering. It's an empowering way to be and to live and to see yourself, and then you wonder, why your vata or why your pitta or why your kapha in Ayurvedic medicine. Why do I go to that restless, excitable state? Why do I go to that fired up state? Oh my goodness, maybe I don't really feel worthy. And I'm bringing people in that take advantage of me. And I do that over and over again. I don't know, maybe that's it. But you got to work on the worthiness. You got to work on refilling your bucket and learn how to do that. Once you start to do that, then it's almost like your boundaries are up and you can't bring that person in because you just don't allow it. It doesn't serve you anymore. And you know exactly what you're doing when you allow that in, you pick up on it very quickly.
This goes obviously, like you said, so much beyond just health. I mean, this is your whole life and your career and your relationships. Yeah. So
it's even like, asking for a raise at work, right? Asking for what you deserve, especially as a woman, right? Asking for support of the home. It goes so much beyond that. And when I start to realize that migraines are considered to be a brain in conflict, I think a lot of pain is the system is conflicted because we're not speaking our truth, because we don't have the tools and we're hiding behind something that we don't even know what we're generating. And once we understand that conflict and we relieve and resolve the conflict, the pain body can lift.
I wanted to ask you too. So you run courses. And so what do your courses entail?
Right now, what I'm doing, and I'm doing this because I feel like it's a calling. I'm really in belief that, we have to really share our dharma, and do our duty in terms of serving. And what I realized is that this messaging, this kind of work is not done often enough, especially in the medical arena. So I have like this 3-brain program, and it's 27 videos, and they're 10-minute videos each. And each of the videos has a little bit of like a homework assignment, self-care, kind of worksheets. And then I do coaching calls individually. Right now I'm offering them individually with individuals every like 3 or 4 videos to get them to kind of go inwards and go inwards and go. It's kind of the journey I took for myself for the last 20 years, but I've done it in a way that I feel like it's more practical. I did a lot of reading on my own, a lot of searching on my own, spent a lot of money on my own, using lots of different resources and tools and people. And I was like, you know what? I think there's a structure to this. And so I created this program to kind of create structure to what seems to be pretty daunting, and to be absorbing it in little nugget sized bites of information, because it gets to be a little bit overwhelming if I think it's taken up by itself. So I blend a little Ayurveda, a little NLP, and then offer some coaching right now. So that's why I'm offering it at this moment in time, and closing out my brick and mortar Zero clinic to do this coaching full time, because it's just that powerful, and the outcomes I'm seeing are so incredible that I just want to have people really achieve that outcome that they deserve.
And it sounds like in that format, you can have just such a wider reach, because this is needed everywhere. And it's sometimes hard to do that in a brick and mortar situation. You can only get so far. So like with the reach. So
Exactly.
you're going to be able to touch so many lives.
I feel it. And there is a role, of course, for the hands-on, being present. Like, as I'm closing clinic, I have people calling me, oh my goodness, where am I going to get my infusions from? Where am I going to get my supplements? And how do I get, there's definitely a role, right, for even Western pharmaceuticals. And I don't want anyone to dismiss and think that those aren't important. And there's a place for each of these things. And for those that are ready to delve, I think this is a really great journey to take. Not everyone will be ready. And I'm okay with that. When they are ready, then I'm here. Yet I think all of us working together to meet people where they are. And I blend, I will do the coaching and work with my Western practitioner friend around the corner. I work with my integrative medicine colleagues too, because, this is one piece of that big puzzle. And as you can imagine, when there's a lot of baggage to clear, it can take a while. It can take a while. So knowing that there may be times you need the support with the hands-on in the brick and mortar. And I'm very aware that these processes and this cleanse can take a while to clear all of that from the first and second brain, and to fix the third brain, the microbiome.
And you also have a book. It's called The Mysterious Mind.
Yeah, it's right behind me. The Mysterious Mind. I wrote that about 5 years ago. It was 2015. Yeah, it wasn't long, 6 years ago. Goodness, time flies. And I wrote it because I was in clinic, and honestly, I was repeating myself over and over and talking faster and faster. And I tend towards Vata, wind, excitable energy. Vata people, when they start talking, they talk really fast. And so I was really going fast in the clinic. I was talking really fast. And I was like, okay, we're going to have to put this into a handout. Well, the handout became a 150-page book. And I use it as a guide, and it gives people time to read chapters, percolate with the information, come back and learn more. So it's called The Mysterious Mind. It's on Amazon. And it's just, I think, a nice resource for people to start with, to learn about Ayurvedic medicine, a little bit more migraine focused, but I think it can help a lot of people in different areas. There's a free cookbook at the back of the cookbook. I read the back of the book, where it's a 50-page cookbook on Ayurvedic eating habits. So it's just kind of a nice resource, I think, to get people started.
Well, that is great. So where can people find out more about you and your programs?
So best place to go is my website, TruptiGokaniMD.com, TruptiGokanimD.com. And I have, there's a little button they can click on called Learn More, and they can go to a 45-minute masterclass. And what I really want to do is just share this information, get this information out there. And even that masterclass, if that's all we did was work together through that free masterclass, I feel like I'm serving you, because it will give you a lot of information of what I've learned over the years. And really my goal right now is just get this information out to as many people as possible. And like I said, not everyone will be ready. And if they're ready, it can lead them into a consultation application if they would like to go there. If not, the free masterclass is my gift, to just listen to it and learn a few things about NLP and the mind and the brain, and start getting yourself feeling better.
That is amazing. Plus, I've actually watched some of the videos that you have of where, you've been on like Dr. Oz and some of these other shows, and even just those little snippets are just so full with so much information.
Oh, thank
you. I was obsessed. I was clicking all through them.
Thank you. It's been a fun kind of journey. And I just really I feel really empowered to share this information. I mean, Ayurveda is 5,000 years old, and I don't know, we kind of have a healthcare crisis going on right now. So we have to band together, right?
Yeah. And I think anything that people can do, like, this is such a great tool that where we can get away from like just taking things to cover up symptoms, and where we can get to the really true healing. So
get to the root cause, my friends, right? Get to the root cause, and let's resolve our pain body and get ourselves feeling good again. We deserve that, all of us.
So I want to just remind everybody to go check out Dr. Trupti Gokani's website. So check her out. Also, when you have a chance, go check out WYTV7.org. There you can find all our other wonderful programming. And please feel free to click on the donate button, because every little bit helps. Your money goes towards doing charitable events in the community. You can see what we're up to there, and also goes to supporting programs like this today. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media. Just look up Dr. Betsy Greenleaf. You can find me in a couple of different fashions there. And don't forget to tune in next week to another episode of Body, Mind, Spirit. And once again, Dr. Gokani, I would like to just thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to all the listeners for listening to our show.
80% of women will develop a pelvic health condition at some point in their lives. There is relief. There is hope. The Pelvic Floor Store, your resource for personal health.